Little history of my life. I'm going to go back to, when I was 5 years old. That's when my mother left my father. My father was very abusive to my mother, and he was an addict, used meth, drank. My mom took us to my grandparents' house, my sister and myself, and we moved in with them. And 2 years later, my mom met my stepfather, and they eventually got married. And my mom was with my stepfather for 7 years. And within those years of being separated from my father, he wasn't in my life. I think I spoke to my dad 3 times in those 9 years. And as a child, I didn't understand why my father didn't want to be in my life. And, I don't know that I ever asked him. And I think that my mom kept us from him. She didn't want his lifestyle to affect us. So, in the years that my mom was with my stepfather, this man belittled me, put me down. I could do no right in his eyes. And that affects me to this day, my self-worth, low self-esteem, and I'm working on it, thanks to my uncle, seeing these things in my life and, him knowing how it has affected me, and I could relate to Jay and to Nick, when they shared their testimonies, getting picked on in school. I was an overweight child and I got picked on every day in school. That also has attributed to, walls that I have built, to protect myself. But I will say that I'm blessed to have had an uncle who, at a young age was born again and prayed for me throughout my life. And through him, my grandparents got saved, and my grandmother, my little nanny, was an amazing woman. And, I believe that she has prayed so much for me in my life. And she's no longer with us. But, there's a big bucket in heaven just filled with her prayers for me. And every now and again, God just dumps those prayers out little by little on my life. And, I thank her for that. I thank my uncle for his walk with the Lord. So, at 14, my mother divorced my stepfather, was in the process of divorcing him, and he left out of our house. Come to find out that my sister she's 2 years older than me, so she was 16, had her driver's license, and was going into Pottstown to visit my father without my mom knowing, without anybody knowing. So, she had come to me and, hey, Dad wants to see you, and I kind of felt some sort of way. I didn't want to see my dad. He wanted nothing to do with me. So this went on for a few months, and, she'd come home and tell me that, my father loved me, and, he wanted to see me, and, I finally broke down and went to see my father, and you know, I think I saw him a few times, and after my stepfather had left out of the house, we went to my mom and asked my mother if my dad could come over for dinner, one night. And my mom agreed to it. And, my father came over and never left, kind of moved in with us. And, I look back, it was a good and bad thing. At 14 years old, prior to that, I dabbled in smoking pot and, drank a little bit, I think like a lot of us had probably done as teenagers. But when my father came back into my life, he was an addict. He drank regularly. He smoked pot every single day. Used meth when he could get his hands on it. So at 14 years old, my father condoned me drinking, smoking pot with him. Told me not to go out and do it with anybody else. If you're going to do it, boy, you're going to do it with me. And, I just thought that it was normal. And I grew up in the church. Obviously, my uncle was a pastor. So I went to youth group and, till I was 14 and then stopped. And, I look back and I see how my life had just, turned for the worse with my father in it. At the time I didn't realize it. I was having fun. I thought it was cool, partying with my father, and he's allowing me to do this. At 17, I lost my father. And, I was angry at God for that. I blamed God for that. I was angry at him for years. I felt like, I just had got my dad back in my life. And, I was pretty upset that he took him from me, Didn't understand why. So at 17, I started experimenting with other drugs. My dad told me that if he ever caught me doing anything other than what he allowed me to do, that I would be in some serious trouble. And my dad was a big guy, and, there was fear of my father, so, I listened to him. But the moment he died I kind of was off the hook then. I tried LSD and mushrooms and, meth. And, at the age of 20, I got my girlfriend at the time pregnant. My first child was on the way. And I was using meth on a daily basis. I worked, but I used it every day. Smoked pot every day. Drank occasionally. And then I just really started thinking about things like, I want to be just like my father, bringing a child into this world. And I put myself in a rehab and got out of rehab right before my child was born. Had a little girl. Her name is Samantha. I don't think I ever did meth after that, but I wasn't sober long, maybe a year, and slowly started drinking and, smoking pot again. And I'll say that pretty much was my drug of choice throughout my life, was smoking pot. I drank on the weekends. I was a weekend warrior with the drinking, but hand in hand with smoking pot. started hanging out with a younger gang of guys, a few years younger than me, and one of them's name was Isaac, and I was real tight with Isaac, and he used cocaine, and I used cocaine a lot with Isaac and was hooked on coke for quite a few years. I didn't put myself in rehab for that. I was in my mid-20s, I believe, and just got away from that group of guys. And let me go back. I got my first DUI at 21. I got my second DUI at 25 years old. And I did my first DUI, I was in the first offenders program. The second one was second offenders program, and with that one I had to do a weekend in jail, and it was either a weekend or 30 days in jail. I chose to do a weekend and go to Chit Chat Farms for 60 days. And so ladies, I've been to rehab. I've experienced it, and and the struggles with addiction. So no sooner I got my second one, and within a year I got my third one. And in New York State, which probation, thank God, never found out about it. But paid a lot of money. Paid a lot of money for my DUIs, Anyway, I worked at the Pottstown Hospital. I started there at 25 years old and met my first wife there. And at 30, I got her pregnant, and my second child was on the way. And, I can remember thinking that, I'm going to do things different with this daughter than I did with my first one. My first daughter, I really wasn't in her life. My addiction, I believe, kept me from her. And, I still struggle with that today. But with my second daughter, I married her mother, and we were together for 12 years, and my daughter is still in my life. She lives with me and Sue to this day. So, that's a blessing. I was there every day with her, and I feel blessed that I'm in her life, That marriage lasted 12 years, and I drank and smoked pot through that whole relationship. I've struggled with addiction in my life, my whole life, up until, maybe a year or so before we opened the recovery house. I quit smoking pot, and I'm not going to stand up here and lie. It is a struggle. I've backslidden a few times, but it's always there. It's Satan's attack on me. Like Dave said, this morning, we don't fight against flesh and blood, we fight against the enemy, and he's out to kill, steal, and destroy our lives. And, I think with my uncle praying for me, and my nan, and other people in my life, that protection was always there. Even though I turned my back on the Lord and didn't walk with Him. And, on my nan's deathbed, I promised her that I wouldn't turn my back on the Lord anymore, that I would walk with Him and I would stick with Him. And there's times it's been struggles. There's been struggles in my life, and I've wanted to walk away from Him, but I believe that He's got His hooks in me now. And those were words that you have prayed over me so many times. And, I believe He does have His hooks in me now. And He's never going to let me go. And I don't want Him to. I don't want to turn my back on the Lord. On a brighter note, I can look back on my life and just see, the things that God has done in my life. What He's brought me out of, what I've accomplished. It's by His grace, I believe. It's His hand on my life. I look back on my father now. I believe that He took my father out of my life. My father was still alive. I think that I watched my father stick needles in his arms, at 14 years old. And, I think that I'd either be in jail, dead, sticking needles in my arms, or where I'm at today. And I'm glad to be where I'm at today. I truly feel blessed. I'm blessed with a beautiful wife who has walked with the Lord and who has helped me strengthen my relationship with the Lord, has set an example for me even before we were together. She was a friend to me, going through my divorce. I just am at a completely different place in my life than what I ever thought I would be. And I owe it all to the Lord and to people that He's put in my life, like my uncle, like my nan. So I guess that's it.
Amen.